Ladies and gentlemen, I have Steve here from Hack Crypto on the channel again. I know we've had him on the channel a couple times before. So, Steve, welcome back. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. Good to be
Right on.
back.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. It's been a while. So, today I really wanted to talk about a handful of things. One, I know you've done some content on non fungible tokens recently, crypto collectibles. I think it's a huge opportunity in the space. And then obviously your startup, Grow Your Base, pretty active in the icon community, and you guys went up as a P rep. So, I wanted to talk about that as well. So, let's go ahead and start with the non fungible token concept here. Like, what's your feeling on non-fungible tokens and their future in the space?
Yeah, great question and great to be here.
Right on.
So, so in terms of non-fungible tokens and the opportunity,
Hmm.
I did a series on my channel probably 2 months ago,
Hmm.
and I slotted 3 months for the whole series, and I wanted to work with 12 of the top developers in the space. So I worked with OpenSea, which is like an exchange for NFTs and digital art and things like that. And I worked with like Dapper Labs and Lucid Site and like these top developers that were deploying really, really exciting NFTs within games, like almost vertically integrated within
Sweet.
these games that they'd already sent out, and they
Hmm.
had like really exciting new events that they were having. And I started working with these developers, and then I realized how small the teams were.
Yeah.
I had no clue until I asked. I was like, all right, I'm trying to get some consistency for the series. Can you tell me how big the team is? And they're like, oh yeah, we're two. And I was like, oh, two,
You
to
mean,
like salespeople, or
yeah.
what are you talking about? And they're like, oh no, just me and my friend, we're both developers and we're both building this out. You're like the first person that we've really like spoken to about this. And I was like, what?
Yeah, mind
It,
blowing.
it is. It's totally mind blowing when these companies are doing pretty substantial amounts of volume. People are talking about them
Hmm.
regularly on social media, often more than most projects out there outside of the NFT community. And that was when like a light bulb went off, and we were already developing the platform Grow Your Base. And that's like basically the Coinbase Earn for NFTs, where you can go in and learn about NFTs and earn them, build out a
Hmm.
portfolio. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put as many of these NFTs on there and see what happens with the series and with these developers and what it triggers for their community. And the series was like easily the most successful that I've ever done, because the developers were pinging me saying like, hey, let's put some more NFTs on there. Let's do a collab on a tweet, whatever.
Right.
And it really, once Lucid Site came out with their which is Crypto Space Commanders, that was their first game, and they deployed a partnership with Star Trek. That
Wow.
was
Yeah.
when I realized like, okay, they're able to release these cool rare tokens within a game that's already created, that are branded with a legacy brand like Star Trek, and capture that whole Star Trek community, all the
Yeah.
Trekkies out there,
For
and
sure, man.
bring them into the ERC 721 space. And that was when just things started going crazy with Grow Your Base and with the series. And I kept going with the series. I didn't stop because I was so interested in talking to everybody, and I met more of the publications in the NFT space.
Hmm.
And I'm actually going to be speaking at an NFT event in February of next year in New York. It'll be pretty awesome.
That's rad, man. Well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a cool space, because it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. Like, how do you price art? And people are always asking like, oh, why would I pay something for this really rare piece on a blockchain? And it's like, okay, well, why would you buy a painting?
Yeah.
And bid for a painting. It's the same exact like scarcity mentality. That's really interesting.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, I think throughout history, like people have proven that they like that sort of thing. Like, what is the utility of like an autographed something, right? Is just intrinsic. It's like I like this person, I love this artist or this athlete or whatever, and so I have this object that has no actual utility but to make me feel good and to like like remember some point in time. And
Yeah.
that's really what an NFT is. But in this case, you can really enforce scarcity with an NFT. Like counterfeiting an NFT is, I'm not going to say impossible, but it's a lot harder than it would be to counterfeit a physical object or a piece of art. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool in that regard.
Yeah. And
You bring, yeah, go ahead.
there's one really cool concept that is, while I was diving down this extremely deep rabbit hole of NFTs, where play to own. Play to own is this concept within these blockchain games where if you think about a group of NFTs that exist on the Ethereum blockchain, uh, as players progress through the game and they start acquiring more of these individual non-fungible tokens, there's different mechanisms that the developers are now using where you can actually share ownership in the company that is developing that game.
Interesting.
So a few of them are actually doing rev shares with top gamers like that are playing the game. If I
Yeah.
own 10% of all the NFTs in a game, I own like this little micro economy within the large economy of the game. They're sharing revenues with these players, and that's never existed before.
Yeah. That's new.
Yeah, and only possible with something that is, applies scarcity, has its own little network within the bounds of this, blockchain that's been built on top of. It's super cool. That was like a couple of days just washed of my life researching that stuff.
That's how it goes, you know?
Yeah.
You find something cool and then you need to know everything about how it works and what the, especially because you come from like that sort of economic minded background. You're like, I need to know exactly what drives value here. And that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Econ is definitely spent 4 years and a lot of time on a degree in econ. So I figured this was the best place to use it in
Totally.
crypto. In
Yeah.
crypto.
This is like this whole entire past, we'll give it close to 10 years, like 9 and some change has been like a case study on the the laws of supply and demand and the law of valuation, because I think it's been a long time since we've had a real clear example of something that's starting from scratch in terms of its evaluation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
super cool.
and it's creating just more wealth than yeah than our generation can even handle because
Yeah.
it's with economics, consumption being like 70% of our GDP,
Mhm.
consumers consuming just massive quantities of products every year, creating a new economy in crypto. When I saw it in 2013, I was like, whoa, all of a sudden all this wealth is being created using scarcity and Bitcoin's just amazing cryptography and everything. I immediately like clenched onto it and was like, this is going to be a big deal at some point because it can create, using Metcalfe's law, it can just create this huge amount of wealth,
Hmm.
huge, like a bucket into a thimble with finance. Like people are just going to be using it for not, it doesn't even have to necessarily be a store of value, but I don't want to digress down the econ rabbit hole. I think
We could do a
it's
whole separate show on it, man.
totally separate show. Totally.
Right on. Yeah, and I think one of the like the ways that NFTs interest me the most would be in creating it for community engagement, right? For content creators, for people that have, an audience, whether they're on TV or they're, as part of productions for movies, right? Creating almost a gamification of being part of a community and letting people collect experiences that you might have, like premiering a video, and everybody who shows up to that premiere is going to get a non-fungible token, like a piece of digital art relevant to that day. Like I think people always respond really well to like memories, things
Yeah.
that you did that you don't want to forget and they can hold on to forever. I think it's That would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've talked to like probably 5 or 6 curated artists or artists that curate other artists.
Hmm.
And what they're doing is they're working with, um, your traditional, I guess you would call them physical artists, people that are painting in real life
Hmm.
on, you know, what do you call it, canvas. And then these curators are coming in, they're digitizing 100 of them, putting them as an ERC 721 on OpenSea and these various secondary and markets, and they're selling them. So these artists have an exclusive amount of prints because artists traditionally they sell prints to their original art,
Hmm.
and I think that cracked open this whole new segment of bridging the real world with art versus or into the digital world. And when I heard that there were curators coming up, I was like, that is
That's wild.
that's next level.
Yeah, for
That is
sure.
next level.
Yeah, and I think it just even prove the point even more. The way that artists, you go, if you go to a museum, for example, and there's like a small exhibit for some smaller artist, almost every artist will do prints, and there's nothing different about each individual print. They're all the same. But in the corner, you'll always see one of however many they've chosen to
Yeah.
print. So they're trying to create scarcity at all times because I think people respond to scarcity in a different way than they would if it's a beautiful print, but it's not exclusive, right? I'm not
Yeah.
getting as much value out of it. So it's cool that the laws of the physical world are very much being applied back in a digital way.
Yeah. That's
Super
right.
cool.
The little marks down at the bottom. My mom's actually an artist, and she always signs them all and puts on her prints the little like number out of.
Yeah. One of.
And yeah, it's so cool that I hadn't actually thought about that. They always write at the very bottom corner of the physical art. But that's so true. It's an exciting space. There's so many possibilities when you're
Yeah.
dealing with, like you said, regular experiences. You could make them exclusive, and
Hmm.
humans love it. I mean, look at Snapchat. Literally, a
Yeah.
message that was an exclusive feel was one of the most successful social media companies ever.
Yep.
So it's just proof that could work.
Totally true, man. Totally true. But I know you touched on it, a little bit when we were introducing, the NFT concept. For someone that may not know about your company, Grow Your Base, could you give them like the VC pitch and then talk about what you guys are doing these days? Like what's new since the last time we talked about it?
Yeah. So actually, in the last 24 hours, we released version 2.0, and
Nice.
basically, Coinbase Earn came out. I want to say a year ago, where they came out and they said you can earn crypto by learning about crypto,
Hmm.
and we were already in the works with allowing people to complete assignments to perform tasks for developers and projects and things like that. And we said, okay, what if we're deeply entrenched in this NFT space, and why don't we just allow people to earn NFTs and build a portfolio by learning about it?
Yep.
Because if you're an investor or beginner in investing, if you don't understand what you're investing in, you're speculating very heavily on it, and you tend to make a little bit less of a better decision. So
Yeah.
if you're more educated, knowledge is power, and you can learn about these NFTs and tokenized assets by completing assignments for the community. Like, you can subscribe to newsletters, you can watch their tutorials and their YouTube videos, you can follow all of their social media and their news, and actually get your hands on one of their NFTs to actually physically play with it and
Nice.
experience what it's like. So it's just a new way, because we maintain that people that are not necessarily in the position where they can go out and spend money
Hmm.
on acquiring a bunch of these cutting edge assets, because NFTs, in my opinion, are like bleeding edge. I mean, that's a very, very small niche within a niche,
Yep. Agreed.
basically. So we're really trying to just simplify it down to the point where people say, like, okay, it's, with CryptoKitties is one of the best examples. We have like, I think 20 or 30 of them on the platform right now. And people just get it right away where they say like, okay, this one has, 3 different character traits that only 100 others have. And then it clicks just like that. We were talking about with the artwork where it's one out of at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's all we're really trying to do is just educate people on what these things mean, and they can develop their little portfolio. And there's a bunch of other different types of assets that we're working on in the near future with tokenization and things like that. But NFTs are what I'm really heavily focused on right now, because I think it's going to be a massive, massive trend in the coming like 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an exciting time. And we rolled out the second version, launched on Product Hunt. And, I think we've done about 75,000 transactions in the past, like 3 or 4 months.
Nice.
Over the past 2 iterations, and really active community. And what you brought up earlier was the Icon community. They have been extremely supportive of us. So Grow Your Base is a standalone platform, and the AC3 token is what operates natively on that platform. And the reason that Grow Your Base is pretty much agnostic right now is because we want to move into things like Steam, and we want to move into things that have NFTs built on top of it. And we don't want to just be, locked
Anchored.
into,
Yeah.
We don't want to be anchored. And, we do have the token that's powered by Icon, and the majority of our users have come from Icon. They are fantastic. We put up our, and we can talk about this a little bit more in depth in a few minutes, but yeah, overall Grow Your Base is super exciting because I want to help new people come into this space and not feel so freaked out.
It's easy to feel that way.
Yeah, it is. And just the name non-fungible token, I found actually freaks people out because they don't know what it means right out of the gate. So just boiling it down to really help beginners.
Yeah. And I mean, even, I've had people, ages ago, I did a video about the difference between a fungible and non-fungible token, because that's such a niche term. I totally agree. People just don't grow up learning on an average day. And then using the term crypto collectible, I think is also confusing, because then people are like, well, okay, but what does that actually mean? Like, I get that it's collectible, but why? And what's the difference between that and any other token that I might get, as part of the due course of being on a crypto exchange, what have you. So, I agree. There's a need for that in this space. People need to be able to go somewhere and then actually get their hands on it to figure out what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting things in the crypto community that you've probably picked up on, where, over the last 5 or 6 years, you can definitely see that it's a bit of a pecking order where it's a small community, 10, 20 million people in this community. I'm not sure how big the community actually is based on Coinbase and blockchain.com numbers. I think it's like 30 million wallets.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's a lot of, barking back and forth. People get really mad at each other in these different camps, all within this tiny little niche, and often lose sight of actually what the goal is, which is just simplifying things and bringing people into what could be a massive revolution. And it's been fascinating to watch, because I definitely don't have any marriage to one camp or anything like that. I just more so care about, educating people like my parents and telling them about it.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was speaking to someone earlier, like I was a wallet provider, like a developer, and they were saying, what happens is every time someone jumps into this space because they hear about it and they have an experience where they've been given so much room to run, like with self-sovereignty of control of your keys and such, and then something goes badly for them, they lose their keys or what have you, the first thing that they do is they go and look for help, and there's no help to be had because it's self-sovereign. And then those people then become, the anti-crypto community where they tell their friends, their family that crypto is a scam, what have you.
Yeah.
And that just like it works against us. So I think it's important for everybody that's creating products in the space to incorporate education into whatever platform they have so that that does not happen. There are some things we have to live with when we're working with products that are bleeding edge or are cutting edge. They're not going to be perfect, but trying to give people as little room to mess it up as possible so that they don't have those bad experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's why people like Coinbase, I mean, in the community, people get really mad at them for various
Yeah.
reasons, but I mean, they have brought just absolute millions and millions of people into the space for a simple user interface, customer service, and I still maintain they're one of the fundamental shifts that's happened in the entire industry, and it's so funny seeing people rip on them.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I don't love everything about Coinbase, but I too, when Coinbase came into the scene, I was like, thank God, like we needed this because it was so painful, the process of trying to find a place to get any crypto, finding a way to like use money without meeting someone online or in person, whatever.
Yeah.
And so Coinbase provided a huge service. And while I don't like the fees and some of the other things that they've done in the past, like I feel that way about every company that I frequently interact with. I don't like everything every company does. So,
Yeah. And it's
part
just
of it.
a foot in the door, like
Yeah.
with my parents, for example, when I first learned about Bitcoin, I went and told them about it, and that was how I started creating content, was just boiling it down for them. And they were like, yeah, you should help other people and try and get other people into it. But
Sweet.
with Coinbase, it's that first step in, it's simple to use, and then you can start layering on top. You can say, okay, send it to blockchain wallet, where then you have to control these numbers. And
Yes.
that means that you are then fully sovereign,
Yeah.
and you can kind of build on top of it. But that first foot in the door, people really need to get comfortable. And that's why I give Coinbase props for doing their earn program to allow people
Yeah.
to really learn about things. And that's what we really want to do with NFTs, to get people nice and comfortable with how they can get that first foot into the door.
Yeah. Because then the floodgates open. Once people understand the fundamentals, there's less of a problem with, you know, people buying something or investing in something or using something they don't fully understand. Like that's when trouble starts. I've had a lot of people reach out to me like, all right, how can I get into crypto? Like family or friends or whatever. And I'm like, the first thing you need to do to buy crypto is to understand what keys are and why they're important. Understand what gives these things value. And if you don't agree with the value like proposition, then don't bother. Because then there's no point in you doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I consider myself lucky to be in the place that I am and being able to watch this stuff happen in real time. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Front row seat.
Front
Front
row
row seat.
seats. Yeah, man. It's like a front row seat in a roller coaster.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And the HODL term, hold on for dear life, like it applies to all aspects of it. It's not just like holding on to cryptocurrency itself. Just being in the space is just like a tornado, and a roller coaster. Amazing one day and a dumpster fire the next day. It's just absolute chaos, but it's addicting.
Yeah, it is. It is. I tweeted about it yesterday. It's like I put a price a Bitcoin and a couple other crypto price tickers on my iPad home screen. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, this was the worst decision I've ever made. Because every time I open turn on my screen, I see what the price is doing, and it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that, but got to keep track of it somehow. But awesome, man. Thanks very much for coming back on the channel. I'm always super stoked to hear what's going on with you and with Grow Your Base and just to chat about the space in general. So genuinely, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
For sure. Yeah. And you guys, where can people find you? Website, Twitter, etc.
Yeah. So growyourbase.io, you can just Google us. We'll come up. as the first one. Just grow your base one word. And I'm on Twitter as Hack Crypto. And yeah, thanks again for having me, man. I
100%.
love being on.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Have a great one.
You
Cheers.
too.